and in that time I've worked with a range of companies, ranging from small to large, and I've also completed my PhD. And in that time I was looking at the different barriers that companies face in moving towards sustainability. And so based on the barriers that I identified, I came up with a framework to help companies overcome those barriers. And I want to share some of those insights and tools that I developed with you here today. So the title of my presentation is called Creating Value from Sustainability and Developing and Maintaining an Effective Environmental Management System. And at this stage I want to sort of define what I think is an effective environmental management system. So it's, to me, an effective environmental management system is one that not only meets the requirements of the standard, but it also engages your staff, helps you to obviously reduce your environmental impact and thereby reduce costs, and also create opportunities to market yourself as sustainable. So without further ado, we've already had, I think John and Andrew spoke a little bit about why you should adopt an environmental management system. I just want to elaborate on that a little bit, and then I'll talk about the typical challenges that I've observed companies facing in implementing environmental management systems. And then I'll share with you 8 learnings for successful environmental management. And those learnings build into the Eco-Wheel framework, which I'll share with you at the end. So we've heard about the different drivers and the drivers that are actually pushing companies towards implementing sustainable practices. But I think it's a good idea to think about how you perceive those drivers to be. So I think you can look at whether you see the glass as half full or half empty. So it's quite important because that perception that you have will actually influence your approach to environmental management. So for example, if you see it as a threat, you're likely to have a defensive approach. Whereas if you see sustainability as an opportunity, you're more likely to integrate it into your business and perhaps create the opportunity to develop competitive advantage. So if we look at the threats that we've already heard a little bit about, obviously there's developing legislation, consumers are becoming more aware about climate change and global warming. You've got the non-government organisations pointing the fingers at people in the Herald, and you've got various trade barriers if you're an exporter. And so the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise have put out a statement: if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So basically, if you're not considering these issues, you're unlikely to be in business for much longer. So if we look at the glass half full side of things, so you know, in New Zealand, New Zealand companies have been facing problems or pressure from overseas imports, you know, from the likes of Asia in terms of cost competition. And that's something that we probably will never be able to compete on. But we do have that clean and green image. And it's something we've been criticised for a while now, and justifiably so, because we actually don't perform as well as that 100% pure sort of suggests. But what we can do is when we do have robust and credible and verifiable systems in place that have real environmental credentials, I don't see any problems with companies actually marketing themselves as environmentally friendly. And in fact, I was judging the Sustainable Business Network Awards a couple of weeks ago, and there are many examples of companies who are doing really well with integrated sustainability into all aspects of their business, and they deserve to be acknowledged for that. So I think if you see it as an opportunity, you're more likely to progress in this area. But whatever perception that you have, companies in fact struggling in New Zealand in particular. We're not progressing as quickly as we could do, and companies need practical and implementable advice in order to progress in this area. So hopefully some of the tools and insights I present to you today will be of help to you. So one of the reasons why companies are struggling is because there is a whole range of different labels and certification schemes out there today, and it can be quite confusing, not just for the customer but also for the companies that are looking to actually implement these schemes. So I want to talk about environmental management systems, as people have already spoken about, and I see environmental management systems as essential to your environmental management strategy. So once you have actually implemented an environmental management system, that provides you with the infrastructure to then progress and obtain product-specific labels that are important in your area. So as we've already heard, an environmental management system is very similar to a health and safety or a quality management system. Essentially, as Oliver said, what you're doing is you're understanding what your environmental impacts are, evaluating those that are the significant ones, and then putting in place resources, programs, objectives and targets to actually mitigate those risks. and the international standard is obviously ISO 14001. So what are the characteristics of an effective environmental management system? Well, to start with, an environmental management system is a journey. It's not something that you're going to achieve from one day to the next. It's an ongoing thing, and it's all about continual improvement. But that journey starts with management commitment, and that's probably the #1 reason why environmental management systems don't work for some companies, is because they don't have that support from senior management. So I'll share with you in a moment some ways in which you can obtain that management commitment if you don't have it already. And the employee engagement generally feeds off that management commitment. So if you've got a CEO in your company that is really pumped up about sustainability, you're likely to see that your employees are also interested and keen to be involved. So I'm a believer that environmental management systems are, or you can't have a one-size-fits-all system that works for every company. Your EMS needs to be flexible, and it needs to be compatible with your products, your particular processes, and the people within your organisation. And as David said, it's not just about documentation. Obviously, you need to have some documentation, but it's not the be-all and end-all of your EMS. It's all about engagement of your staff and the various stakeholders within your company. And the final point, it's all about also working with external companies and people in order to facilitate a successful EMS as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in detail in a moment. So, based on my experience and these insights, or the characteristics of an effective environmental management system, I'm going to present to you now learnings for a successful environmental management. So, learning #1 is be strategic, and this relates to the idiom of the glass half full, glass half empty. Why is environmental management important to your company, and where do you want to be? Do you want to be taking a defensive approach to environmental management, or do you want to be proactive about it and implement it into the different aspects of your business? And so one of the tools that you can use in order to be strategic is the SWOT analysis, and that looks at the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities and threats of your company in relation to sustainability. So for example, what are the existing internal capabilities of your company? If you've got an existing health and safety or quality management system, that's a fantastic platform, as we've already heard, in order to add an environmental management system onto that. Weaknesses. If you've got a management team that aren't supportive of your EMS, you need to note that down because you need to obviously get their support. Opportunities. Are there opportunities to create new products, open up new market opportunities for your company? And threats. Is there impending legislation, or have you got competitors in the market that are already implementing sustainability? So based on, if you note down the different issues under these categories, that will provide a good infrastructure for you to take a strategic approach to implementing in EMS. So the second learning is pick the low-hanging fruit. So if you're one of those many companies that have the problem of having a owner-manager or a CEO that doesn't support your environmental management system because they perceive it as being a cost to the company, well, you need to change their opinion on that, and you need to be systematic about it. You need to pick the low-hanging fruit, and by that I mean you need to show that there are real cost benefits to be had by going towards sustainability. So I want to illustrate this with a case study example which I know quite well. Criterion Furniture. They are a medium-sized furniture manufacturing company here in New Zealand. They manufacture office and garage storage and entertainment products. And so they have been quite successful, but around a decade ago they were struggling to compete with the Asian imports on cost. And so my colleagues, Mehdi and Rainer, went to them and suggested that they implement a sustainability program to add a new string to their bow. And originally that didn't really go down too well, or there was no real belief behind that, the idea behind sustainability. But eventually we were able to convince them otherwise. And we did that by showing them, by going through a systematic process with them of identifying the benefits of sustainability. So as Oliver showed, what you can do is you can do some process mapping. So we firstly started by limiting the scope of the EMS to the manufacturing operation of the company, because that's the area that the organisation has direct control over and where the most financial benefits can be made. So what we do is we map the various processes, and this is a little bit crude because I want to make it nice and simple, but these are the main processes in the company's manufacturing operations. Then we look at the inputs and outputs in each of those operations. And so once we have those, we've got the different areas of waste noted down. And Oliver showed a similar sort of a table. What we've got in this table here is we're noting down the different outputs, the different waste streams, and we're evaluating them against a number of different criteria. And in this first category, you can see here possible financial benefits. And so you're looking at whether reducing that environmental impact will have a financial benefit for you. You're looking at the quantity of waste, severity of consequence, and also whether there's market or legal requirements around it. So this is another method of evaluating whether your environmental aspect is a significant one. And so you can see at the top of the list there is polystyrene. And so in the case of Criterion Furniture, we identified that polystyrene was the most significant environmental impact. Polystyrene was used to package furniture. The company manufactured 500,000 products a year. It cost the company $500,000 a year to package those products. And so we were looking for an alternative to the polystyrene. Unfortunately, there was no viable material available, but what we could do, what we were able to do was reduce the amount of polystyrene in the packaging. We reduced it by 20%, and instantly we had that $100,000 a year cost saving that was achieved through that project. It wasn't rocket science, it was really easy to do, and it was $100,000, and it was like a switch that went off in the owner's head, and all of a sudden, we had that buy-in that we were looking for, and we were able to implement a more holistic sustainability program, which eventually led to Criterion actually becoming the Sustainable Business of the Year in 2008. So I think the key message here is pick the low-hanging fruit, start with a project that shows that there are real cost benefits to be had, and be systematic about it. The third learning is to be inclusive. Obviously, you do need to have a sustainability champion in your company. That's fantastic. But you also need to integrate or get engagement from your other staff as well. So integrate it into their day-to-day activities. So understand who your internal and external stakeholders are and what is their interest in your organization's sustainability and performance. So you're looking at your staff, but you're looking at also external stakeholders. And how can they be engaged to facilitate the success of your environmental management system? So if we're looking at external stakeholders, we've got the likes of your suppliers, you've got customers, you've got local council, you've got sustainable business networks, you've got consultants, you've got auditors, you've got universities. Universities are a really untapped resource here in New Zealand. There's ample opportunity for companies like yourselves to take advantage of student resources which are cheap but are really good value and can implement fantastic projects for you, and it's a win-win situation because those students are looking actually for experience and you're looking for a cheap resource to help you with your problems. Okay, so the fourth learning is to be holistic. So I started with the Criterion example, and in that case we were looking at, firstly, we were limiting the scope to their manufacturing operations, and that was fantastic because we were able to prove the cost benefits of the sustainability program. But obviously sustainability cannot be achieved in isolation, so once you have started your program and with that limited scope, but you also need to expand it to include your supply chain and to include customers. But that needs to occur once you already have the buy-in from your management and once your environmental management system has been established. So once you've looked at the different programs that you want to implement, whether it be waste, whether it be energy, green supply chain management, eco-design, there's a whole range of different programs which will be applicable for different organizations. You need to break those down into manageable objectives. So if we're looking at, and objectives are sort of medium-term milestones, so if you're looking at a waste program, your overall objective might be to have zero waste to landfill, but you can't achieve that overnight, that's unrealistic, so you want to break it down into achievable steps, and that's what we call objectives. And targets are a subordinate of objectives, which is sort of day-to-day activities or small tasks, which lead to your achievement of objectives. So, the sixth learning, and I think this relates to something that someone previously said as well, be transparent. You don't want to be falling into the trap of greenwash. It takes a long time to develop a reputation, but it only takes one stupid piece of marketing to put yourself on the front page of the Herald, and all of a sudden your reputation's gone. And communicate to all your stakeholders regularly and provide them with information when required. So there's two types of communication which are applicable in environmental management system. Obviously external communication, but internal communication is just not are just as important, if not more important, because it's all about engaging your staff. So I encourage you to go away and develop an environmental management committee, different staff members that are interested in your sustainability program, and those people can then meet on a regular basis to talk about the different issues. There's a whole range of different mediums that you can use to communicate and engage your staff, and I think you should think about the ones that are most applicable to your organisation. I'll show you a software solution which we've developed a little bit later on. So the seventh learning is match best practice and match the best practice standards in your industry. So work towards and acquire certification that matter to your industry and to your customers. And so I'll bring up the slide again of the various different labels and certification scheme. Oliver's already talked about eco-warranty today. I'm going to again limit it to environmental management systems. In New Zealand we've got three main standards, certifiable standards here. So we've got EnviroMark, which you might have heard of. That's a 5-stage program in order to achieve ISO 14001. And so it's only really known here in New Zealand. So if you're operating in the New Zealand market and you want a step-by-step way of getting to ISO 14001, then that might be the right thing to do. Eco-warranty, as Oliver said, it's sort of a simple, easy to understand version of ISO 14001, known a little bit more internationally than EnviroMark. So again, maybe if you're a smaller company and you're not exporting to a large extent, eco-warranty is a good way to go. But obviously ISO 14001 is the international standard, so if you really want to show that you've got a credible system exporting internationally, ISO 14001 might be the way to go for you. So the final learning is to integrate it. A lot of companies I know have already got a health and safety or a quality management system in place, and we've already heard what the benefits of integrating your systems are. But I'll just go over those quickly again. So if you've got one overall system, you're going to have increased awareness of your staff, and you're going to have increased engagement. You've removed the duplication. All these different standards are based around the same concept of plan, do, check and act, and a lot of the requirements are the same. So there's definitely no point in having three separate systems there. It's easier to manage if you've got one system, and also you're reducing your cost of the audit because you can do them all at one time rather than doing separate audits. And another point that I want to bring up here is if you've already got a health and safety or a quality management system in place, but you think to yourself, well, maybe this isn't exactly what I want my systems to do, maybe you can use this as an opportunity, in implementing your environmental management system, you can use this as an opportunity to rethink the way you run all three systems in the one. So, you can't see that well, unfortunately, this eco-wheel framework, but all these learnings feed into the eco-wheel framework, which is essentially a tool that we've developed. It's an environmental management strategy tool, and it shows in one snapshot where your company is and where you want to go. So essentially you've got a roadmap for your different objectives and your different programs. So I'm just going to very briefly run through how this works. So once you've done your SWOT analysis, your stakeholder analysis, and your aspect and impact identification and ranking, you can consider what your programs are of your environmental management system. And again, this is going to be different for every single company. So you develop the different programs. Some companies might have a fleet, so you might have a fleet management there. Some companies might be a product manufacturer, or they might have an eco-design program. It really depends on the particular attributes of your organisation. So central to the different programs that you'll be running in your environmental management system is an environmental policy. And so based on that policy, you want to develop objectives that progressively build your organisation to the world-class performance or the industry best practice that you want to achieve in the different areas. And so you do that for all your different programs. And so once you've done that, essentially, as I said, you've got a strategic roadmap to progressively build yourself towards where you want to be from an environmental standpoint. What you then want to do is you want to assign staff members to be project champions or program champions in the different areas, and essentially these people become your environmental management committee. And it's important for them to integrate this responsibility into their everyday jobs. So for example, if you've got a health and safety manager, or sorry, an HR manager, they might be your training and culture champion. If you've got an engineering manager, they might be responsible for energy and waste. So once you've put together that committee, you can start to progressively meet those objectives or put resources into place to meet those different milestones. And so you're slowly building your, and obviously this is something that you're not expected to do overnight. You're not expected to go from 0 to 0 overnight. But here in one visual central spot, you can see where your company is now, where you want to go, and what the steps are in between. So the idea behind that is that you no longer have to have a 50-page report anymore to read about your environmental performance. You can engage everyone in one brief snapshot. So what we have done now, so we've found that to be a very, very powerful tool in communicating the company's environmental strategy, both internally and externally. And so we've put that as a central interface of a software tool called EcoPortal. And EcoPortal is an online sustainability or environmental management system which also integrates with health and safety and quality. So let me just give you a quick demonstration of the software here. So you can see what we've tried to do here is move or put the requirements into, the next slide, sort of put the requirements of the standard into a software product, so you don't longer have to worry about the potentially bureaucratic requirements of the standard. It's all in an easy to use sort of online package. So we've built up a, we've actually got Logan Waite here who's put together a stand outside, so if you want a deeper demonstration of the software, feel free to get in touch with him. And we've also got a group of advisors who can help you set up your EcoPortal system if that's something you'd like to do. So we've got Anita Fleming here from Safety Care. Anita, can you just put up your hand? She's an expert in health and safety, environmental and quality management systems. We've got Taryn and Caleb here from Morphin. Can you guys please raise your hand? Yep. So they're also experts in environmental management, health and safety and quality management. And my own company, we've got Rainer Seidel and Mehdi Shabaspour here. They're from KBS Sustainable Innovation Partners, and we're experts in environmental strategy and also environmental management systems. But we're more than happy to talk to you about your issues, and feel free to network with us afterwards. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. No? Good, thank you.